Hello again, folks, and welcome to the second Technical Help and Advice Q&A event at our fantastic Friendly Club online show. I'm Andrew Dickens, and I usually host the theatre area on the club stand. A couple of days ago, we answered a range of techie questions for caravanners. Today's theme is motorhoming and campervans, so our session leans towards that, although some of the questions will apply to other unit types. I'm joined again by Iain Geddes, the club's technical advisor. Hello Iain, thanks for coming back.
Hello Andrew, good to see you again.
We had a great session the other day, and I know this one, we've got some great questions for us. If you're new to motorhoming, please get your questions in, and also if you're very experienced, get your questions in as well. And I understand you'll be on Facebook again, won't you?
I will be. I'll be on Facebook Live today until 1 p.m. So if you've got any questions, send them off and I'll see if we can answer them. Keep a listen out to what we have to say, and if you think there's a blank, ask away. We'll see what we can do.
And all you need to do is write your question in the comments section on this Facebook page, and that will get to you, won't it?
That's right.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's dive straight in. Here's our first motorhome question, which actually is from someone who is new to motorhoming.
Okay.
Do I need a special license to drive a motorhome?
Well, not normally, no. It's, excuse me. When we were at the shows, we used to be surrounded by motorhomes and campervans. Most of them would be up to 3,500 kilograms. Now, an ordinary car licence actually entitles you to drive up to 3,500 kilograms. That's what it says. It's any vehicle up to that weight. So a motorhome, campervan, not normally a problem. It only becomes a problem if you have a much heavier. You see some with 3 axles, tag axle as people like to call them. Bit of jargon there for us to learn. They're very heavy. They can be up to 5 tonnes or more, which is 5,000 kilograms. That requires licence C1. And if you pass your test before 1997, you'll have that automatically. However, if you're a post-1997 driver, you will have to pass yet another test, and it's a medium commercial vehicle test.
And what does the test involve, and how can you do it?
It is a driving test, but it's based around a medium truck, so you have to drive quite a substantial vehicle. You'll be tested in the same way. You've got to show a competence to make progress in traffic and so on. Recommend you have a professional instructor. Well, they can only really provide you with the vehicle to do it anyway, so it would be through a school with their vehicle. And they're dotted around the country, you can do that.
And can we do them with the club as well?
We don't do anything like that, I'm afraid. What we do offer, though, is for those that already have the C1, that may have never driven a motorhome before, we have our courses. Mm-hmm. So we help out in that way. So we have it's manoeuvring and road driving course, and it gives you the confidence to understand how to manoeuvre them, how the overhang can catch you out sometimes, because when you turn left, the first thing the back of the motorhome may do is start to turn right, for example.
So this really does depend then on, I imagine the person who's new to motorhoming here has probably got a unit under 3,500 kilograms, so they're probably going to be okay. But if they are over 3,500 kilograms and they're post 1997, they need to do a test.
Definitely.
Let's say someone who is new to motorhoming had their license pre-1997, but they're going to drive a motorhome that's over 3,500 kilograms. Would you recommend it might be worth doing the course anyway?
I think so. It's really, really helpful. I've done the course. I found it really, really helpful when I started with the club, and it gave me good confidence to, I'll jump in a motorhome now, make sure I check my height and things like that. It's all a little bit of classroom there like that, because you need to know your height for bridges and so on. So it's all those little nuggets of information they feed you, all that, and it gives you the confidence to make good progress on the highway.
Excellent. So quite a few options there on that.
The only real headache is we haven't got a fleet of test motorhomes, so you have to buy one first, I'm afraid.
But that's a nice purchase, isn't it, anyway? Now this one follows on quite nicely, actually. Someone sent this question in, and this is a question for one of our slightly more mature viewers, I would say. So I drive a large motorhome. What do I need to do when I reach the age of 70 with my driving licence?
Well, when it says large, we're going to have to assume over 3,500 kilograms.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's driving it on C1. Now, what happens with C1 is when you turn 70, it becomes part of a renewal process. Now, because all licences expire at the 70th birthday. Your normal renewal for car and motorbike, which includes car and trailer as well, that's just done under standard renewal. But the heavier categories and the minibus category, so that's C1 and D1, they require a medical sign-off from a doctor.
Ah, okay.
And that's been proven quite troublesome of late because of with what's been going on with the lockdown. But things are starting to settle down again now, and the system is starting to get back into order. And
so with the process of this, let's say you're going to turn 70 in 3 or 4 months' time. When would you start this process if it was you?
you start, generally, well, before lockdown, the DVLA would send out what you might call a renewal pack, a standard renewal pack, which came with the forms, the two special forms, D4 and D2. The D2 is your form, you fill that out, and you're telling the DVLA that you wish to retain these extra categories. It's just tick a box, really, it's just tick a box. However, the medical report form is with the GP. They go through it and they look at your medical records. They want to do a blood pressure, they check your eyes. The doctor may actually say you need to see an optician for that bit as well, so there's always an element of that. And then you send that completed form off, as the doctor will sign you off as fit to drive, and then you send it all off and you get your licence back. But this process, it wasn't terribly lengthy prior to lockdown, but of course there's still got problems.
Might have been a backlog.
I expect there's a massive backlog, yes.
So maybe 3 months before, make sure you get this pack from the DVLA and then get your appointment with your GP, because you may have to get optician's appointments, as you said, that kind of thing. So the earlier the better then.
Definitely, yes.
Fantastic. Okay, well that's a nicely answered question there. We're going to move on to seat belts in motorhomes now for this question. And someone's written in and asked, can we take our children, or our grandchildren for that matter, in our motorhome which doesn't have any rear seat belts?
You can, but there are some constraints. I had to go back to the good old .gov website to check this out, and it's easy enough to find actually. I just went to .gov.co.uk and put in seatbelts children, and it took me to the place. And generally, particularly children up to 3. They have to be in a dedicated child carrier seat, a child baby seat, and with the harnesses and everything that then is attached to the vehicle. So this means, in almost all circumstances, the passenger at the front would have to yield their seat to the very small child.
Because that particular child seat, of whichever description, that has to be in that proper vehicle seat.
Yeah, because there's no belts anywhere else to put it. I mean, the seatbelt law is ancient. We all know if seatbelts are there, they should be worn.
Yeah.
So sorry. Seatbelt law? Yeah. Seatbelt law has been around a long time, and we're all used to just the idea that if they're there, you must use them. But you've got that area at the back where, yes, you can carry passengers, but they're loose, effectively. And but it started to get very complicated, though, and I don't want to dwell too much on this, but when we started to get to a point of type approval for motorhomes, and this is around about 2007, we had a clear definition of what a travelling seat was for a motorhome. And this was made quite clear that it is a seat that's been properly made and tested, secured to the chassis properly, and it has a 3-point harness. However, if it's a rear-facing seat, it's permissible for it to be a lap belt. So believe it or not, aircraft engineers don't know how to put a seat in.
They should all be the other way around.
They really should.
Yeah.
So that's fine. So if you see a lap belt on a motorhome, it'll be a rear-facing seat.
Yeah.
If it's on a side seat, just don't use it. They actually do more harm than good if there's a crash.
Right.
So I've been informed by safety engineers.
So you really want to be either in a 3-point properly fitted seat belt if you're facing forwards.
Yep.
If you're facing backwards, then the lap seat is
sufficient.
correct.
Yeah.
So post 2007, you're probably going to be okay with those kind of things. Yeah. Pre-nut 2007, and some of the older motorhomes and campervans, some of them may not have anything at all.
They won't, no. And they won't even have the structure for retrofit either, which is a bit of a headache.
Right, okay. So, but are you legally allowed to take, say, your 5-year-old and your 10-year-old in the rear of that motorhome or campervan?
Yeah. If there's nowhere else for them to travel, then you can. And it's quite exciting. It's worth a visit to actually understand this. The .gov.co.uk page on seatbelts for children, because there's certain criteria where you can, such as a rented vehicle where there's no provision.
Yeah.
Using a taxi, for example, they give a short list of where you can.
Okay, so it really does depend on the unit you've got, when it was built, and what's in there. Yeah. But legally, you are allowed to do it. Save the anyone under 3 has to go into that passenger seat.
Yeah.
Do you need to think about airbags if you put the under 3-year-old in the passenger seat?
Certainly. More modern motorhomes do come with airbags for passengers as standard now, and so you need to familiarise yourself how to turn it off. It's usually a key or some sort of button on the dashboard.
Yeah.
I've seen one where you open the passenger door and you put the ignition key in and you turn it, and
That disables it for that moment.
yeah.
But then, of course, once the child's out of there, if you use it again, you need to make sure you
reset it
again afterwards. So thank you very much for that one. On to our next question. This one's about tyres. So tread carefully here, Iain.
Yep.
So what I did there?
Yeah, I'm going to have to get a grip.
Oh, I love it. Okay. So here we go. Firstly, do I put a similar pressure in my motorhome, campervan, or even caravan tyres to that of my car? And then the second part of this is my 10-year-old tyres have loads of tread, but a service engineer has told me I need to change them. Why would that be? So pressure in the motorhome, campervan and caravan tyres first, I think.
They differ considerably. It helps if you think the air in the tyre is what's holding the weight and the tyre's merely holding the air in. Mm-hmm. So once you've got that, if you have a motorhome, shall we say, it's got a 2,000 kilo load on its back axle, those tyres might need, say, 70 pounds per square inch. Whereas the much lightly loaded front axle might only need 60 pounds per square inch in it. And it's to do with the load on the axle, so you really need to get to grips with this. The caravan's generally a little bit less than that. They're generally no higher than 65 psi. Mm-hmm. Campervans tend to be under that because although they're great big tyres, they're generally a lighter vehicle than a big heavy motorhome conversion. And your car, well, generally, unless you've got them under high load, they're 35 psi, maybe 25 psi. They're quite low, so it's all very different.
And it's very important to get the right PSI here. Where would we be looking to find this information?
This information should be on the vehicle, unless the vehicle's been modified. If you've changed the wheels, for example, there's a real fashion for changing the wheels on certain campervans, certain brands, to put like sort of big, nice, shiny wheels. Mm. Those will require a different pressure. And if you've changed from the spec, that plate will no longer. So you need to know what you're doing. You need to consider these.
So if you've bought a second-hand campervan, for example, someone's put some fancy tyres on it and you've got the original manual, you need to make sure that you know what these tyres should be pressurised to, because it won't necessarily match what's in the manual.
It won't. It can be quite challenging to find that information out. But generally, I mean, if it's still all original, all stock, or a like-for-like replacement, the placard on an inside a door strip will tell you what it would be. Big motorhome conversions is a bit trickier because what you have there is a base vehicle that's been made for many options, many conversions, and they give you a great chart, and you've got to kind of work your way through this. That can be quite challenging.
Right, okay, so you do have to be careful with this and make sure you read the documentation to find out the right pressure here.
Yeah.
Okay, the second part of this question, my 10-year-old tyres have loads of tread, but a service engineer has told me I need to change them. Why would that be? This
is the problem that's not well understood about how tyres age. They have age inhibitors in them, but it's the agitation of movement, the heat, the sidewalls bouncing, and everything that you associate with movement of a tyre is what keeps those inhibitors working correctly. The moment you especially people who lay up the motorhomes for long periods of time, those tyres are aging faster doing nothing. It's really...
Wow, which is not necessarily what you'd expect.
It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? Yeah, so you look at them, they look fantastic, nice tread and everything, but they've sort of got a sort of sheen, a patina to them, and it's sitting in the sun, it's ground level ozone, sea spray, it's all doing, like in the same way sun harms our skin if we have too much. Tyres suffer the same fate. So they're sort of failing from the inside out almost. It's the only best way to describe it.
So if you are someone who does occasional use of your motorhome or campervan, even though your tyres look incredible, actually, because they've been sat on the driveway or in storage for quite long periods of time, they're aging faster than if you'd been doing more mileage.
Yes, yes.
Wow. And that will probably surprise quite a lot of people.
I think it does, but it kind of makes sense when you start really thinking about it. And particularly, I think perhaps more the caravan fraternity understand this better. They'll cite a caravan for a season. And you look at the state of the tyres at the end of a season, and they're really shiny. It's like they've been baked in the sun, if they've been lucky enough to have some sunshine.
So this service engineer is doing exactly the right thing. 10-year-old tyres, definitely saying replace them. What would you say for, under normal circumstances, when would you replace tyres?
As a rule of thumb, and again, this is not law, this is a guide, it's taken from advice from the tyre industry, is 7 years from the date of manufacture.
Right, okay. So if you're lucky enough to still have good tread on them, at the 7-year point, that's really when you should be changing them.
Taking a long, hard look at, take some advice, see what they...
Because they're doing a lot of work, aren't they? And you want your tyres to be safe, don't you, at the end of the day?
That's right. I mean, when you think about it, that piece of paper in your hand is the contact surface of 4 tyres on the road for your vehicle. You're putting your life into that. And so, they're quite a key component, often overlooked.
And I had heard someone say that having the right tyre pressure in there, going back to the earlier part of the question,
Yeah.
If you've got the right tyre pressures in, does that make them slightly more fuel efficient?
It will do. The correct pressure means it's optimised. It's so there's a correct patch of contact for grip, for cornering and acceleration and braking, but you're also enough rolling resistance to keep it as economic as possible. We work closely with TyreSafe, and one of their representatives said to me, a little overinflation isn't necessarily a dangerous problem. Your tyre will wear a little quicker, if nothing else, but underinflation is very, very dangerous. They can get very hot, and that can lead to failure.
And if you're travelling down the motorway, you really don't want that happening.
You don't, no.
So get your pressures right and make sure you change them at, say, the 7-year points, no matter, even if they've got good tread on them.
Yeah, that's the ideal.
Excellent, good advice there. Next question, this one's about electrical power. I think this is probably from someone new to motorhoming as well. What size hookup cable should I have for my motorhome, campervan or caravan?
This, there is effectively a standard for this. It's what we often refer to, people say, they're having some work done and the electricians say, well, the regulations say I must do this. That same wiring regulations is a published standard. It also covers things like this, and where we with our campsites, where we have to put the bollards as well. And what it is the cable needs to be 25 metres long and 3 cores of 2.5 millimetre square sections with the common blue plug and socket at either end. And then the bollard's put in such a place that should be able to reach any socket on any tourer when it's been pitched correctly. So we're governed by a standard effectively, and if you have the right length cable, you'll be able to plug it in and then walk over to the bollard and it will reach.
And certainly on all of our club sites, they're all specifically designed with this in mind, aren't they?
In the UK, a campsite should be laid out to match that standard, yeah.
Any difference if you're on the continent?
Yeah, it's a good point actually. As some campsites, I've certainly visited one in France, the bollard was, I didn't have a tape measure, but I strided it out with my standard metre stride,
Yep.
and I reckon it's about 35 metres away.
Wow, so quite a long way over.
So would recommend, if you're going to go continental tour, especially on smaller independent sites, and there's some lovely locations, there would be a bit less diligent on this, and you may need an extension of, say, another 10 or 15 metres.
And that's okay, is it? You could take your 25 metre cable and then put a 10 metre extension cable into it, that's okay?
It's less than ideal, but it is an outdoor socket. It's designed to go outdoors. It's not fully waterproof. It can't sit in a puddle. So if bad weather's coming, you've got to think, what am I going to do? Do you unplug it? Or, I mean, I've certainly seen, and I've got photographs in my archive, of plastic bags wrapped around them. I wouldn't do that because there's condensation's a problem then. But certainly if you can find a brick or a block and stand it up.
Get it off the floor.
Get it off the floor.
So
and it's showerproof.
Yeah, so in the UK, you're almost certainly going to be okay because we're adhering to the standards. Just be a little careful if you're travelling further afield.
Yeah, certainly it's the little independent sites.
Excellent. Okay. Now, actually, this one, and I know from being with you at the shows, this is a question you get. It's quite a complex one. This is talking about A-frame towing, recovery dollies and trailers. Can be very complicated. But as I understand it, this is to do with people who want to tow a car behind their motorhome. Is that something they can do?
They can. It helps if you think what the UK definition of a trailer is. And it's quite clear. It is a vehicle that's been built or adapted to be towed by another vehicle. So what an A-frame bundle is an adaptation to make a car meet current trailer regulations, which means all the lights, the warning triangles on the back, it must show the registration number of the towing vehicle, and the brakes must work. And that's all part and parcel, where brakes are fitted, they must work. That's all well known. And the A-frame manufacturers should adhere to all that. Your kit should then fit trailer law. But that only really works in the UK, because on the continent, they do have a habit of still viewing them as a recovery dolly. And the word in the title, recovery, is the key element. And in the UK even, recovery dollies are there to be used to move a vehicle from a place of danger to a place of safety or repair only, usually only by licensed operators, such as our partners, the RAC. And most people probably won't even have correct insurance to use one, let alone anything else. So really they're for recovery only. They're not the tool to use. Proper A-frame conversion for the UK. If you want to be safe and sure on the continent, get a little trailer and put a car on a trailer.
Right, so that's another way around this. So if you're in the UK, you can find one of the A-frames because it's specifically built for that purpose.
Yep.
But if you know you're going to go onto the continent, probably look towards the trailer and get that done properly.
Yeah.
Excellent, great advice there. Now, here's a question I've often wondered about batteries. And the person that's written in has asked, is my leisure battery charging up whilst I'm driving and also when I'm hooked up at the campsite?
I'd like to say it should be, insofar as if everything's working correctly. The motorhome or van conversion will have a little switch, we call it a split charge relay. As soon as the engine runs, obviously the alternator will push power to the starter battery to get that back to where it should be, ready for the next start. But also a little feed, about a fraction of that level, about 20 amps, will go to the leisure battery or auxiliary battery, whatever you would like to call it, and charge that up as you're going along. It takes a few hours. If it's flat, it will take a few hours to actually put a meaningful charge in, but it will do it.
And then once you're hooked up at the campsite, does the situation change, or?
No, there's another device, so the engine's off, so that relay is now isolated. So, and what happens then is, as you've got your hookup cable, you plug it in, it may automatically go to battery charge mode.
Yep.
There's a little power supply in there, and it can charge a battery. Or you may have to just flick a switch to switch it on. So it's, because some conversions have a quite simple switch that means switching between what batteries you've got fitted. Others, it's all fully automated.
So again, we're getting the handbook out again here, aren't we?
This is handbook territory, just to confirm what system you've got and how it works.
So, because is it more modern motorhomes and campervans may have that automatic function?
We're generally seeing it more on the automated ones, and all you'll have on them systems is what you might call a storage switch, a master switch, which just turns the whole system off for storage. But when you're using it, you just leave the master switch on and it just senses the power and switches.
So you just need to check your manual, make sure whether you either have to do nothing, or you may have to just make a little switch or press a button to make sure you're charging your leisure battery up whilst you're hooked up to the campsite power.
That's it, yeah.
Brilliant, thank you very much. This is a great one, and we've both seen this on campsites. So someone's written in, whenever I go somewhere in my motorhome, I tend to pack everything but the kitchen sink, and that's only because the kitchen sink is already in there. How can I be sure that I haven't overloaded it?
There's one of perhaps two ways, really. I mean, you could have a great exercise. I mean, if you've got a family, you want to have a little fun exercise with some maths, you could get everything you want to carry in it and actually put them in a basket and stand on some scales. You take away the weight of the basket and the scales, and then you know the weight of, say, all your kitchen gear, for example. And it's a great way of getting the children involved as well and having a little bit of maths. And sort of, this is exactly what I did many years ago when I was first doing this myself. And we knew exactly what weight we put in. And then you go to the handbook, and it should give you an unladen weight. It should be accurate, but I'll come to a problem in a moment about second-hand ones. And then what you have is your fully laden weight, which you know from your VIN, and the difference is you'll use a payload. And of course, you've also got to carry your passengers in that, so there's a problem. Yeah. And if you are overloaded, it is an offence on the highway. So
this is illegal?
It is illegal, yeah.
So you need to think about this quite carefully. And
when we'll go back to the second-hand ones, motorhome users, I love their gadgets. And before you know it, this lovely unit that's been built has suddenly sprouted a satellite dome, a bike rack, a wind-out awning, and the list goes on.
And very common now, electric bikes becoming incredibly popular, and they're wonderful, but they're quite heavy, aren't they?
They can be, Even if you take the battery out, you've still got the motor and all the control features, and they're quite a thing to lift around. So, so all this needs to be factored in to that load. If you really can't work this out for yourself, go to a weighbridge, find out where a local weighbridge is. You may have to pay a small sum and get the two axles weighed, because that means you'll know, because you may be only overloaded on one axle, you might be able to redistribute the weight.
Right.
So that's helpful to know that. But once you know what you weigh, you know what you're doing. And if you are overloaded, you're going to have to take a long, hard look at it. You may be able to have a modification, which is called a weight upgrade. However, we're back to driving licences again now.
Yes.
Is your licence able to cover a heavier motorhome?
Yeah. So you need to think about all these things. And although, in one sense, it's quite amusing. We've both been on campsites where we've seen people with literally everything in there. And in one sense, it's quite amusing. But actually, it's illegal, folks. Yeah. So you do need to do this work.
And we go back to the tyre pressures we were talking about. If you've overloaded, you've probably you wouldn't have thought, oh, I know I'm 500 kilos over, I'm going to put the correct tyre pressure, and you don't know, so you're running your tyres underinflated, which is dangerous.
Again, because they could heat up, and then you could have a problem with a blowout. Yeah. So again, make sure you do this work. Experienced people have obviously done this, but for those people who are coming into this, you really do want to sit down and do a bit of work on this.
Definitely, and there's some great lightweight stuff out there. You don't have to take heavy crockery. I mean, I know one of our few luxuries is we do actually take some crockery mugs because we just like the tea and coffee in the morning in them. But that's pretty much it. Everything else is dedicated lightweight camping gear.
Exactly, and well worth investing in. Well, folks, that's the end of our second technical team Q&A session with Iain Geddes. There is also lots of information on the club's website, isn't there?
We've got a lot of data sheets covering all forms of camping. But with the motorhomes, we've always got what you can tow with the motorhomes. That covers off the A-frame to some extent as well. But not only that, you might want to tow a box trailer maybe for all this extra stuff that you can't carry because you've overloaded. Yeah. We discuss all that. Or people with campervans you might want to tow a caravan. It's all there, all sorts of information like that.
And there are some wonderful videos that you've done, especially for people who are new to motorhoming and campervanning, even the simple stuff like grey water, wastewater, this kind of thing. Yeah,
we've got a few videos out there now. We're going really back to basics with some of these, and even things like emptying the toilet cassette, which, for an experienced camper, you just get on with it. Mm-hmm. It's no big deal. But for the novice, it can be daunting. What do I do? Where's the right place? Is there an etiquette? Which there isn't really. It's just other than clean up after yourself. Mm. But it's all that kind of thing, it's not an onerous task, actually. But with the site restrictions and not being able to open facilities, for some people, I think it's the first time they've ever used it.
So someone could have had a motorhome for quite some time, but actually never needed to do this. Yeah. So again, even for those people, those videos are fantastic. Yeah. The website is www.campingandcaravanningclub.co.uk, and then of course there's the YouTube channel as well. So lots of videos there. That's the Friendly Club on YouTube, and loads of great videos on there as well. And then also all the data sheets you just mentioned available from the website as well. Well, goodness me, I think it's fair to say I've really enjoyed these two sessions that we've done. Obviously, you'd normally be doing these at the show, but I think this has been great to do this, especially for people who are new to this. We hope you found them helpful and maybe a bit inspiring. If you've missed any of the sessions, you can find these videos again on the club YouTube channel. Enjoy the rest of the Friendly Club online show special. Stay safe, folks. And Iain, thank you so much for doing this for us. Really appreciate it.
No problem. You're welcome.
Thank you.